Hello, my name is Olorotimi Osha. I like to talk about American presidents. And of course, as I discuss US presidents, I get into policy that US presidents enacted and its impact on us. Um, right now, I've been talking about color of law violations, deprivation of rights affecting that's 18 USC section 241 and 242 and 42 USC section 1983 malicious prosecution, which I'm still experiencing in Montgomery County, Maryland. I go to court in 2 days. I have a trial in 2 days. That's what it's supposed to be. Of course, they still have no evidence to convict. It's a futile prosecution. Its intent is to obstruct justice, and it's also a racist. It's a racist charge. It's a racist prosecution that's going on. Racist and xenophobic prosecution carried out by the state attorney's office in Montgomery County. It's become very common now. Today, I want to talk about the immigration crisis from my end, and I want to talk about it from the lens of my wrongful detention, right? I was detained for an aggregate of 15 months, falsely imprisoned. Now, one of the people that I had a cellmate while I was held wrongfully at Montgomery County Correctional Facility, who was Hispanic. In fact, let me see, at least one, I had um, five Hispanic cellmates. Yeah, let me see. There are four Hispanic cellmates. And how many African Americans did I have? Uh, I had three African American cellmates. These went always short term, because for the most part, I had a cell on my own. I was given a cell on my own, which I read. But of course, when I had a cellmate, those, it could be in 4 days, 3 days a week, and then 4 days a week. When you first go in, you share with somebody, and but I would, being a writer, a journalist, you shouldn't waste don't let any a good crisis go to waste, as they say. So this is a crisis situation. My wrongful detention, I'm not going to use it to mope. I didn't use it to mope. I used it to leverage my skills, what I do, so that I can win. In every disadvantage, there's a seed of an equivalent advantage. So I'm an innocent man who's been wrongfully detained, wrongfully charged. I never imagined that I would experience being an innocent man in jail, being charged wrongfully by law enforcement. So I was targeted by law enforcement, by the government. It was reprisal, and that's the reason why I'm doing videos talking about the John S. McCain Strategic Defense Fellow and how I got to file a complaint against the government, because it started with little sexual harassment, little acts of discrimination by my colleague, who was white, female white person. But you see the power that these people have. And she's from Montgomery County, right? So her father's it's ironic. Her father is a physician, according to what she told me, at National Institutes of Health. Her mother is a teacher in the environment in Montgomery County, and you can start looking for links. One of the powers of if you learn well, you are able to analyze. So I don't grasp at straws or create build castles in the air or create fantasies. I use analytical skills or facts, what I know, and try and connect dots. Right. So John McCarthy, for instance, he's been a teacher before, right, in Montgomery County. He started as a teacher before he went to law school. That's John McCarthy, the state attorney who's brought the malicious false charges against me, right? And this person's mother too is a teacher. Could they know each other in the same Montgomery County, small county? They probably know each other. And then this person, the community, that it's just only 6 degrees of separation, and so it wouldn't be far fetched. It wouldn't be a stretch, it wouldn't be a stretch to find a link between her and this bad faith malicious prosecution. That's a person I reported for sexual harassment and misconduct. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the racism, the Nazi racism that's going on in Montgomery County, Maryland. Um, so when I was first held wrongfully, I noticed majority of the people in Montgomery County detention centers, maybe 70, 80%, were blacks, right? Were black males. But by the time very, very high, the next second highest number is Hispanic people, right? And, white people are few. Even though Montgomery County is a predominantly white county, it's mostly white, right? But you see their jails are filled with black people, majority black, maybe 70 to 80%. But by the time, because the guy arrested me, he would arrest me 3 times. He would go and lock me up 3 times because they got this interest, this fascination with me doing an evaluation, a mental health evaluation, which, by the way, when I filed my complaint against the DOD, the attorneys wanted my medical records. They requested it. One of the ways that you can that lawyers or in a adversarial process in the courts, in the EEOC, in the government, to get a case dismissed is to say, well, the person's claims, their claims are not factual because they have a mental illness, so that they should dismiss it. So that's one of the dishonest things that I expect the Navy attorneys were trying to do, because one, I had my facts, I had the evidence. I'm an auditor, right? I'm a lawyer, and I've been a banker since. I deal with facts. I deal with documenting things. I've been doing this for a long time, right? Documentation. I have 20 years of experience with that, and so if they couldn't demonstrate that, say, well, this person's delusional. So that's where that started, right? That's where it started. The DOD attorney, the unethical DOD attorney, because she committed fraud upon the court by submitting a false document in the EEOC. But it's a legal proceeding, it's a court proceeding. But because it's administrative law, they can claim that it's not really. Well, we took oath. They can claim that it's not an Article 3 court because the EEOC administrative law is still within the executive, right? They have sort of delegated authority before it goes to the district court. Now, and the DOD attorney is Supraja Murali. Ironically, she graduated from George Washington University Law School like me, but she did something that bordered. It is attorney misconduct. So that's something that should be looked at. But so it's interesting that the Montgomery County prosecution, the state attorney, all she got interested in was me doing mental health evaluation. In fact, she claimed that the former prosecutor, Thea Zumwalt, whose grandfather, by the way, was Elmo Zumwalt, he was erstwhile chief of naval operations. So she's very strongly affiliated with the Navy. I filed attorney misconduct complaints against her. She was removed in July 7th, 2025, thereabouts. And a new guy came in. I've already filed attorney misconduct complaints against him as well. So that's because this is a malicious prosecution. Its goal is to defame me. It's not credible, right? And there was police misconduct, and John David Lalos has hidden he's concealed the police misconduct, and he's tried to co-opt my attorney to sell out, to conceal, to suppress the evidence of the police misconduct, the fabricated evidence. That's actually attorney misconduct. So it's egregious prosecutorial misconduct. He's violated the Brady rule. But in any event, so there's this racism thing going on in Montgomery County's state attorney's office, and like I said, this female prosecutor, Thea Zumwalt, I don't know what she identifies as, but she said that, or he, I don't know, she or he said that they said that they only filed the baseless, trumped up charges against me to use it as a mechanism to force me to go and do a mental health evaluation and take treatment. So you see, that's conclusory. It's delusional. That's actually illegal. You can't do that. I don't know what they taught them in law school. You can't do that. That's what they do in Montgomery County. But in any event, I saw that's what they've been doing to black people, minorities. The police files charges against them, so they throw them in jail. They say if they take medication right there in jail, someone who's never had used medication. In fact, I had a cellmate. His family, he went to the post office. He was thrown. He got into it with the clerk. They called police on him, brutalized him. In fact, on his band, there's a handband that you wear where they take your mug shot. You could see the hand of the white cop battering his face. The picture was actually there, and he could keep it as evidence to sue them, right? This guy, they battered him, and then he dropped. It was trespassing, because now the post office accused him of trespassing, and then when when the police arrived, and they battered him, threw him in, charged him with trespassing, they were now trying to force him to just take medication, and they'll drop the charges. That's what they do in Montgomery County. I couldn't believe it. I could see. I wrote everything down. I have his name. I'm going to write a book about all of these things, and so there could be good investigations in the corruption, the cartelization of the carceral system with the Maryland's Department of Health. There's a cartel. There's a racket going on, right? Violating RICO. It's astonishing. So the guy said no, he doesn't have a mental illness. That he's not. He had his family calling them and all that stuff. And then he said, they forced him. But the guy just wanted to carry on with his life. Then they trick you. They tell you that, well, if you claim that you have a mental illness, that you'll be able to get free rent, right? He'll be able to they'll be giving him $1,000 and $1,000 a month and free rent, so thereabout something. Can you imagine? That's where they're defrauding the United States government in Montgomery County, Maryland, through their racket, their racketeering. So and their wrongful charges against black minorities, and that was what was going on in Maryland. There was but something I also want to talk about. So there was this cellmate I had. He was Spanish, and he told me a story. So I used my time to investigate, to ask people questions. So, and every person that came in had a story, and I guess I'm going to also do discussions and talk about each story, because these guys now reminded me of when I learned of their stories and I saw what was going on in Montgomery County. Like I said, the incarceration rates was like 80% blacks at the time I entered, 80 to 90% majority blacks. Spanish were next, but they were hardly the case. But each time the judge, he would lock me up 3 times. He would try and send me to go and see a psychiatrist, because he would ask me when I was on bond that I should volunteer to go and see a psychiatrist. I would say, no, I'm not. I'd already, my aunt, just to cooperate, my aunt wrote him and did one. I actually have a friend who's a psychiatrist. He works for the federal government. He's a senior executive. He was my classmate as a child. He's one of the leading psychiatrists in America. He talks on TV. He knows what's going on. When I come out, I call him, we're talking. He knows what's going on, right? And he knows there's nothing wrong with me. The first time that they locked me, wrongfully the first time Bonifant did the wrongful involuntary commitment, and I was released, and I was given that clearance by Dr. Martin Brandis, in which he said no diagnosis for a mental illness and all that stuff. With that, hey, because I didn't use any medication, and they didn't see anything, blah blah blah. And then he said any symptom they saw, he attributed it to something else, that maybe I was just stressed out, right? That's what he said. Maybe it was just the circumstances, or I was stressed out, but that's not mental illness. I don't have a mental illness. First of all, the things they wrote were fabrications, but he said he's never seen these things in me. All the doctors, there were 6 psychiatrists and psychologists, they were so apologetic. They apologized to me profusely, saying I'm a strong person, and they say I'm a writer, that I should use this as just some kind of experience, and they admitted, they said it's up to me if I want to take legal action against Maryland. They admitted it was unusual, because they ended up liking me. I developed a relationship with some of these, because I'm the intellectual, and I wanted to find out, because I got curious. I was curious about the people that were in there, and I'm a writer. This is just material for me to write about, and so. But right now, let me get back to what was going on with this Mexican guy that I want to talk about. He was literally from Mexico, and he told me his story of how he crossed the border at 16. He told me of his story back home, and it's very, very interesting. But something unfortunate that I saw. So when I came out and I was released, I noticed, I went to look him up, because, and these are real people. They give me their names. They trust me. When you go to jail, they normally tell you, there's a case manager who tells you that, look, don't tell anybody your case. About your case. You don't even have to tell them your name, because you're assigned a number. So they want you to use your number. Sometimes they can call you by your cell number. But, you shouldn't give them your name, because you can be targeted later on. That's what they advise you, the case, whatever. But, if you develop a rapport with some people, they'll let you know everything. So these people would show me their papers, and I would talk to them, and they knew, and I wanted to write about this stuff, right? And so this guy, when I got out, I'd go and look them up. Every one of them, the stuff they told me was verifiable, right? And it's unfortunate. In fact, I'll talk about somebody else that was in a psychiatric hospital. She was smart. She was in her 40s. She's a black woman married to a white guy. She went through a divorce. She has an MBA. I went to look her up. She was in the U.S. Air Force, military sent her to school. She worked in the Treasury Department, and they put her in a psychiatric hospital. The same thing. They charged her for assault 2nd degree. She told me her story. So she refused. Once the state of Maryland, once they file false charges against you, they tell you that, well, they have the right to force you to do a mental health evaluation. And if you refuse, they have the quack psychiatrists. They're going to diagnose you with a mental illness you don't have, that you didn't know you had before, right? You see my charge statement. I've done a video which I read, and the crooked, semi-literate cop Demarcus Coleman said, I have an undiagnosed thought disorder, somebody who didn't know me. And they're practicing medicine, psychiatry without a license. I don't know if but it's the state of Maryland that seems to have given its cops, right, its undereducated cops, the authority to arrogate psychiatric licenses to themselves, so that they can misrepresent themselves as psychiatrists. But this person, at the hospital, she refused. She didn't want to. She was pissed because she was arrested. She said they locked her up in jail for a year. She hadn't had a trial, and it's true. Look, my case has been 3 years. 3 years. That guy locked me up for 15 months. It's been 3 years. Placed me under house arrest for a year. So they do it. So this is a black American woman, right? And I learn of their circumstances, and it's so sad. She's not the only black American woman. There was another black American woman. She was a model, very beautiful woman. Unfortunate, she's the one. She had actually been raped. Somebody who'd been raped in jail. And the thing is, once they put you in a psychiatric hospital, they'll just say you're delusional, or they can kill you. But we see that these correctional facilities are crooked. They have these crooked, the cops, law enforcement in Maryland, they're crooked with their state attorneys and with many of their judges, right? You see the Kentucky case, the Mullins guy that was killed by the sheriff, and it turns out that they had a racket which they had a sex thing going on with the inmates. They were extorting sex from inmates, and the judge was involved. And so it's you don't know. The federal government, FBI, needs to crack down on the corrupt criminal justice system in Maryland, in Montgomery County. This is something that I see. Um, I'm going to talk about this other female who has an MBA, was violated. It's unfortunate what I saw them do to her. It's very, very unfortunate. But back to the guy, the cellmate I had who was from Mexico and who crossed the border. His journey is one of so much courage and bravery. And when I got out, I went to check him up, and I saw that he'd been sentenced to 10 years in prison. He, like many Spanish people, they get, jailed for drunk driving, DUI, driving under the influence. And they're repeat offenders for that. So not violent crimes, nothing like that. So this guy was actually working, came to America at 16, was now, he'd been in America for 25 years, was now 41. He was married to a white woman. He's still, now, and the way their lives are just destroyed. He was now, his wife was now talking about divorce because he was locked up. He didn't know what was going on. He gets DUI violations because he was on probation. He had something going on. He was on probation. He was meant to join a program. Is it alcoholics, whatever? And he's supposed to be going for these programs and all that. They suspended his license and because he'd done it, it violated many times. It's DUI, and he explained to me, he gave me the reason why he drinks. Why a lot of Spanish people drink. In fact, majority of them, that's the problem. That's how they get them into jail. You see a lot of guys, Spanish guys, and see that they work so hard. And it's not easy for immigrants, and they work so hard. They're just used and exploited, and the drinking is the outlet. It's their outlet. It's the way they find relief from the just constant plugging away. And there was just so much going on, and I'd learned. He gave me his story of how he crossed the desert. He crossed from, he walked through, the border, crossed the border, the journey, it took several days, about a week. They see cadavers on, dead bodies on the way, and wild beasts. I think he described them like warthogs, something. And that those wild beasts, those wild animals, actually, when they see them, because they see lots of humans coming, I'm like, don't the animals attack them? I know that they get scared. They go through forests, they go through swamps and all these things. My gosh, it's basically like treading through a jungle, because they go through different terrains. But like those animals get scared and run away. And you see people who've died of dehydration on the way. But this guy made it. He was 16 years old. He told me, the harsh conditions, how it is difficult, the way, the pattern, how they do their toilet. Because he was saying they use bark of trees. I'm like, what bark of trees? You mean leaves? And I was like, no, that bark of trees. I don't know how you could do that. But it's a very difficult journey. It's a very difficult experience. And this guy had come to America. He had 2 children, and they made it. He was successful. He'd worked in the same construction company for the past, for over 20 years. Amongst the early jobs he got, and he kept it. He rose through the ranks, and he was now a manager. And he did 2 jobs. Those 2 jobs he was doing, he was still working there as a manager. There's one he did in a restaurant. He was now the manager of that restaurant. He'd done for 20 years there. The same, and then he had a day job, the construction. He was a manager as well. It was a bigger, a multinational construction. It started as a laborer and he was now a manager. He was so respected because he had a house, right? He had a house in Montgomery County in Rockville. Uh, Now, by the way, Montgomery County is one of the wealthiest counties in America, right? So he had a house in Rockville. You can imagine somebody who walked through the border as a 16-year-old. He came alone. His family didn't come with him. He came alone. He was lucky when he worked at the restaurant. He married early, so he married a white woman, and so he's a citizen now. But now his marriage is on the rocks because he's been locked up. Now they've sentenced him. When I came, I checked his record. They've sentenced him to 10 years. He got convicted, right, for violation, for probation violation, and the judge gave him 10 years for violating probation. So they're trying to force people to go out. I remember I used to he used to tell me what was going on between him and his wife, and he loved his kids. So his wife was now really harsh on him. His wife was now telling him things like, "Why doesn't you just go back to Mexico?" Right? Because I guess they have this program, but he's an American citizen and he's worked hard, and he would express his doubt to me. He talked about how he had supported his wife, and now because she didn't have anything when they met, they were teenagers and everything, and she's a white woman, a blonde, and she's helped him. She's been supportive, but I mean, a woman will be supportive when you're working hard, busting you're behind everything, doing everything for her. In jail, he's still paying the mortgage because the company he's worked for, they're paying him his salary. That okay, he's gonna owe it. He's gonna pay it back. They're paying his lawyer. I mean, that was just fantastic. They're paying him his salary, paying his lawyer because he's been with them over 20 years, and so he's owing them. So he had a private attorney, but this guy lost, and so he started having misgivings and suspicions that his wife may have set him up, right? Because he had a violation. I'm not going to discuss his case, but he thinks she wants the house, and she wants him to just go back. Because I'll be here, he'll be telling me what she's saying, and his conversations with his wife were just not good. And she was doing things. The phone calls in jail are recorded, so she was like revealing things over the phone, like just snitching over the. And I remember the day he goes, "Oh, why are you saying that? This is a recorded line. Why are you saying these things?" It was so people who are always like marriage is their life. This is somebody, his partner who he loved. I mean, what 16, 17, 18 years they've been married. They have kids. She's the mother of his kids, and he's in jail now, and she's basically setting him up, throwing him under the bus. I remember like, why are you saying these things? No, why are you saying these things? And he's like, he knows she's not a stupid woman. So he now thought that the whole even arrest, because he was caught for a probation violation, right? He violated his probation, right? That's why he was arrested. And it was like, he thinks she was, that it was like they were following him. They were following him. And, it's a DUI. And so it was like he thinks that because she was the one who set him up. And it's so sad. You see, what they're doing now in America, the way they're, and my experience in Montgomery County, Maryland, they filed false charges against me, even though I'm an innocent man. What they're doing now, it reminds me of a time in America during the Great Depression, and they did the Mexican repatriation when there was a Great Depression, and people, 25% Americans were unemployed. There were some places like Ohio, towns in Ohio that had 80% unemployment rate. And then President Herbert Hoover, what he now did, he was our 31st president. He and the federal government, they encouraged, they instigated state governments and local governments to round up Mexicans and file false charges against them, to just arrest them, mistreat them, and lock them up so they wouldn't have their jobs, and offer to buy them tickets to go back to Mexico, even though they were born here. Majority of them were born here. Over 300,000 to 2 million Mexicans left America. People were American citizens. And so that whites, their jobs would be vacant, and white Americans would be able to take their jobs, because that was Herbert Hoover's panacea to the Great Depression. He said it was the Mexicans the foreigners who were taking jobs of white people, of American people, even though the Mexicans were the Mexican Americans. They're from Mexico, well, they were American citizens, right? Because, remember, America took Alta, California, a lot of places, Texas, a lot of these places from these nations, through conquest or purchase or whatever, coerced purchases, right? Like the Treaty of Guadalupe, uh, Hidalgo, after the Mexican War under President, what's his name? Uh, James Polk, 11th president. And it went on and on, so it's like that period, that's where we are as well, because the state of Maryland offered to drop charges, false charges that they filed against me. I'm eager to clear my name, right? That's my right. If I'm accused of something, right, I have a right to defend myself. They haven't let me, be heard, to defend myself and cross-examine my accusers, right? And that's what I've been waiting for, my day in court. Again, that's a principle of natural justice, right, to be heard, audi alteram partem, right? Uh, they offered that if I go back to Nigeria and I don't come back, they'll drop the charges. And if I ever come back to America, they'll bring up the charges again. The charges are fake. So as I've read the history of America, the times they did these things, like these atrocities that the U.S. government, local governments did these atrocities against minorities, like during the Mexican repatriation, right, in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, that they literally would just file false charges, arrest the Mexicans, arrest them so they'd lose their jobs, make life very hostile for them, antagonize them, make life unlivable. And then they offered them tickets, offered to buy them tickets to go back to Mexico. Americans, they were American citizens. And this is what I'm experiencing. They came to get me in my home, filed false charges, abused me, shot me. You see these stitches here, you see them? That's where they injured me. Those are the stitches. You see them? My head. So they shot me, injured me, brutalized me. You see my body, the bruises they left on my body. I was just in my home. I wasn't committing any crime. And then they fabricated things. Okay, at least I'd been waiting for my day in court. Let me present evidence of what they did and that I'm innocent. They're the ones who have the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that I'm guilty of the false charges. The police who injured me, brutalized me, no arrest warrant, came on fabricated accusations by a man who's recounted. That's Jide Wariri, man with dementia, apparent dementia, who's lied. He's just an evil man, because everything he said was a lie, right? He's recanted his statements, and they don't want to even bring him in court. They don't want him to appear. The neighbor who lied to get a peace order, who lied that I kidnapped him, right, and stole his phone, he too doesn't want to appear in court. By the way, the state of Maryland charged those two people, and they said they could bring up the charges at any time. Charged both of them for assaulting me. But the attorney doesn't want them to appear in court. Was trying to get my public defender to conceal that evidence, that we should suppress that evidence. She first told me she will suppress all the evidence since they're false witnesses, they're fabricated evidence, and that so she suppresses all the evidence, the case will be dismissed. That's what she first told me, because they don't have evidence to prove anything against me. Then she didn't do it. Eventually, she was just trying to get me to conceal stuff. Ordinarily, because they falsified information, that's fraud upon the court, and it's material, right? It's material information. The case should have already been voided. It should have been dismissed, right? Because that's fraud upon the court. It's an egregious perversion of justice, right? But the public defender is selling me out, and was doing the bidding of the state attorney and the corrupt judge James Bonifant. So I'm seeing what I studied in history. I'm experiencing it, and I'm seeing it. And I got an opportunity to go into Montgomery County jails and see the atrocities and the abuses, the corruption of law enforcement, not just the cops, but the state attorney's office, the public defenders that sell them out, that trick them, and the judges, the wicked judges. Because you would think this judge, I gave this dude 10 years, would consider that this guy is a law. He's had DUIs. He's not been arrested for, he's been in America 25 years. He's an American citizen. He's what you typically call an American dream, right? The American dream. He didn't get a degree, a college degree, or he didn't get any of that stuff like I did. But he trained himself. He reads. You can see, he even talks with an American accent, right? He trained himself, and his wife taught him. So it's so sad. He told me about how his wife helped him a lot with his English, how they would, it's so sad how, the carceral system is destroying lives of minorities. And he has this bond with his children. His daughter is 16 years old, his son, and he calls them, and he would cry sometimes. I try and cheer him up because I was like, look, don't worry, they can't. Because I would tell him, because he worried so much. He thought he was going to get time. And I was like, look, even if you get time, maybe a year, 2 years, because I thought that, look, in what world? You've made all this success. You have a private attorney. Your company is paying your mortgage. These are things that show you're actually a contributing member of society. And it is Montgomery County. He lives in Rockville. He's not a criminal. He's not a drug dealer. He's not, it's DUI. And if your attorney can explain why it is that you drink, and they can take you to treatment, they can find you. Why don't they find somebody who he's married, him and his wife live in the same house, he has 2 kids. Shouldn't be a father be with their children? He's just destroyed this judge. It was a woman. She just destroyed his life, gave him 10 years. I saw the sentence. I couldn't believe it. 10 years. It's like blackmail. So they've made it so extreme. It's like, that was what his wife was saying over the phone. That, why don't you just go back to Mexico? His own wife. Because then he was like saying, because she wants the house. And she knows he's going to give her the house because he loves the kids, because the kids will live there. But it's like, no, he's an American citizen. That, what did he work all this? What did he do all this work for? Right? The judge gave him 10 years. And this is so unfortunate. The other people, other lives that I met, while wrongfully detained in the hospital, and I'll do other videos and just touch on those lives. And, we're now living in like the era of, this literally happened during the Nazi era. Apart from them eventually carting off Jewish people and putting them in concentration camps and deciding to exterminate them. 6 million of them were exterminated. It wasn't just Jewish people that were killed during the Nazi era in Germany. But, these are the ways that nationalist and, racist countries, this is how they operate, right? They target the marginal, the minorities, use their legal system to make life unbearable for them, to give them an option to just self-deport first of all. If they don't, eventually cut them off and send concentration camps, and they start exterminating them or use them as slaves. It looks like this is where, is this where America is progressing into? I don't know, because the things I'm seeing, I'm a student of history, and it's just appalling. It's frightful. It's scary, man. And let me stop here. My name is Olurotimi Osha, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.